Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Fintech Fridays. I am excited today. We're going to take a little twist and turn with the guest list. Normally, I'm bringing on tech providers, tech vendors. Today, I have a consumer of technology, and we're joined by Walt Carter. Walt is the Chief Digital Officer at HomeStar. Walt, thanks for joining.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be with you, Brian, especially on a rapid fire day like today, St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Plus, we just did a really great live broadcast a few minutes ago. There was a lot of people on. That had to be a lot of fun.
It was. It's a little nerve wracking. It's a little calming doing these recorded sessions, and then the live ones tend to. There's more moving parts, but I'm glad to have you on. I'm excited about this conversation because I talk a lot with technology providers, vendors to the real estate finance space. Mm-hmm. And I love those sessions because I get to learn typically about a new product, service, or how people are thinking about their technology and solving specific problems. And every now and again, I like to mix it up and actually bring somebody on to ask their perspective as a consumer of all these different technology products and services, and especially someone like yourself, Walt. You've been at this like I have for a little bit, and we're in a interesting market and environment, no question about it. Mm-hmm. In your role as Chief Digital Officer, I'm sure you're being challenged every day from, I'll call it, top of the house to, manage down costs and expenses. And you're probably being equally or even more challenged from the field, right? I got to have this, I got to have that. If I only had this, I could do that whole deal. So let's start with kind of in the last, 6 months, what has it been like in this environment for you, kind of managing all things digital for HomeStar?
So, it's a hectic environment, as you called out. I mean, you've seen this pretty dramatic market flip from feast to famine almost, and, a couple of years ago, in the height of COVID, frankly, we had borrowers jumping in the boat when we went fishing. You didn't even have to, bait a line or anything, no nets, nothing. They were just jumping in the boat. And you saw this massive increase in home values and people still offering way above price offers. That created problems for us on the appraisal side, as you might guess, right? Does the appraisal really match that offer?
Right.
Now we're going, in a very different direction, though, where people are somewhat paralyzed by the interest rate rapid increase. The home values are not really coming down as quickly as maybe some of those prospective buyers are hoping. So there's a lot of paralysis. And then every time the Fed raises the rate, it cuts the market, right? So we've gone from, a huge, like 4.7 trillion, I think I saw one guy say, down to about 1.7 trillion very rapidly. That means there's not only, a much smaller pool for us to fight over as lenders, the competition is incredibly powerful. And most of us were kind of riding high, to be honest with you, from the COVID, the bounty, right? And I was like, oh, yeah, hey, listen, times are good. Now we're throwing stuff off our boat as fast as we can to reduce costs and get our cost to produce down. And at the same time, we're trying to answer the call from the field, right? What does the field really need? And I'd summarize it by saying, the most obvious stuff. I'll do the Captain Obvious thing here for just a second, right? Which is you've got a lot fewer deals to look at unless you broaden the top of your funnel. So if you're an LO out there in the field, retail or wholesale, doesn't matter. It's the same game, right? You've got to go get more referral partners, whether they're realtors or builders or whoever. And you've got to get more deals flowing through, because with the margin compression we're seeing, in order to make the same money that I made last year, I got to have a lot more deal flow. Right? Yeah. And I got to have a lot more closed units than I had last year to make that kind of money. How do you know where you are in your referral network? At a glance, can I tell you where I'm at, Walt? If you were coaching me as my branch manager or my division manager, for instance, how would you know where I'm at in building out my referral partners, building out my builder relationships? How much of their book am I getting? How many of their deals do they give me every month? And are they reliable partners? Or do their deals come through? Right? Do I have that pull through? So I'm looking at partners and tools that will help my team actually, kind of manage that from a CRM perspective. I don't spend any time today looking at, well, what else could I do with Encompass, or what else could I do with my point of sale solution? Right now, it's really all about the leading edge of the sword and helping the loan officers themselves be successful. The other thing, and you and I touched on it in a previous call, but it's this. Right now, what everybody wants to know is what I just said. Where am I at in the deal? And so, we're preaching really over communicate. Let them opt out, right? Let's communicate to them any way and every way that we can think of conceivably. Anytime something changes in the deal flow for a particular borrower, tell everybody, right? And you do it in a compliant way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, make sure you do it. Don't fail to communicate. Let them opt out. And I'm not seeing anybody opting out right now, Brian.
No, and that's a great thing to kind of poke at a little bit, because I think there's two communication tracks, right, that are maybe arguably equally important. There's the obvious one, which is the loan officer, the lender, loan officer, and borrower, right? And you kind of hit on this when we started. There's never has the competition been fiercer for fewer deals. And so it's not out of the realm of possibility, 3-4 weeks into the process, to have a borrower say, excuse me, Mr. Loan Officer, but I found I could get this rate over here, right? And so I think what you're saying on the over communication, let them opt out strategy is very important for that consumer, because the more they're hearing from the originator, all the good, bad, and ugly, you can't just be sharing the good. You've got to be super transparent. You're going to make it more difficult for them to roll the dice and start over somewhere else, right? But I think when you're talking about communication, you're also talking about all the other players in that deal that have a stake in this financing. So it's the realtor, it's the title agent, it's a builder, it's a couple realtors on either side of the transaction potentially. How are you guys kind of, what are you doing to kind of to think about that differently, and create those tracks or channels for that kind of constant communication?
We're really aggressively going after, the front end, the CRM. Like I said, I think that's where the action is. And at the same time, I have to say this out loud. A lot of the LOs are in this very volatile environment. I would consider it probably one of the most volatile environments, in the last 12 years that I've been in this business. This is my third mortgage company, right? So, I've seen a lot here in the last few years. But even with the meltdown in 2008, I didn't see the kind of grass is greener. Maybe I should go somewhere else. Maybe I should go over to the wholesale side, not the retail side. Right? Maybe I should sell insurance. I'm not sure that real estate's where I need to be right now. We're seeing that kind of just, soul searching, I guess I'd call it. And as a consequence of that, people are going, but I don't know if I want to put my relationships in your CRM.
Right.
I think I want to put that in there, because if I leave, I'm taking those relationships with me. That's my bread and butter. So then you got to really think hard as an implementer of technology. Okay, so what's in it for them, right? What is the incentive for them that makes it worthwhile for them to actually put those relationships in our system? And it's the ability then to generate that over communication that we just described, right? It's like, look, you can't possibly track all this stuff with a notebook and a spreadsheet like you could in the old days, right? Not if you're a big producer.
Right.
If you're a big producer, you've got to have some automation working for you. And you've got to maintain a presence, a point of presence in the mind of all of those constituents that you just listed, right? And you got to really make that personal. and it can't be machined. I guess I'll say it that way, right? But you can then start to introduce, interestingly, a lot of drip campaigns that are coming out through basically text, right? I can do a lot of SMS messaging. I can do SMS updating. I can do emails that follow that same path, right? I got certain places where it's got to be pick up the phone and let's call, right? That kind of thing. And all of that can be automated and or triggered through the automation that gives you a lot more flexibility and a lot more power if you're an LO trying to spin a lot of plates.
Yeah.
Right? And at the same time, you've got to be able to track what's happening in particular with your referral network. This is where I think the real action is right now, which is, the game for us has always been B2B, right? It's really about my business working with your business to get a continual flow of borrower prospects coming my way so that we can help you. If I do a great job with the borrowers, I get more of that business from my referring partner. And if I don't, I lose business. I lose
right.
Business, right? So if you're a realtor and you're a listing agent, I want you to know about me and I want to communicate. If you're the buyer side, that's really more important in some ways, but not any more important than the listing. Got to have the listing in order to get the buyer, right? Over on the builder side, hey, we got an inventory shortage, guys. I know everybody knows that, but so let's go work with the builders. Our top producers at HomeStar are working directly with builders, and they are just doing great right now. They're not seeing a big drop off. They're seeing the deal size change.
Sure.
They're seeing the velocity change. But the truth is, the guys that are working with the builders are, I think, right on the money. Personal opinion, right? But there you got to work through the chain of command of the builder, right? I don't need to tell the builder about what's going on in this neighborhood. I need to tell their agent who's in charge of that neighborhood. And so, a couple concepts that we're playing with right now is how could I provide those agents in that neighborhood more information about the people that are opting in with us to get pre-approved or pre-qualified for homes in that neighborhood? How can we share that information about the interest level from our borrowers and actually, consummating a deal with that builder and that builder's agent? And then obviously roll all that up so that the builder can quickly log in and say, oh yeah, these are all the deals I got with all my neighborhoods all across HomeStar land.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things that the builders are looking for. Give me information that helps me make money.
Yeah.
Same thing with the realtors, right? Give me information as quickly as you can, Walt, that helps me decide how I can better serve this borrower or this seller in this transaction, right? How do I, and I think the three words are truth, trust, and integrity, right? Let me just get to transparency with everybody as much as I can in a compliant way. But at the same time, what I'm building is, this authority, right? I'm building this ability for us to say, we got you, and we're taking care of you, and you can trust us, right? You can't do that without the automation, right?
Right. So what I'm kind of picturing the individual agent. What types of tools are you giving them access to that's keeping them connected, or is it as simple as they're in an email or a text or both type of communication thread? Maybe describe that a little bit for us.
So we're doing a lot of things with new CRM that we just brought on. We've got some pilots that I want to be careful working through.
Yeah.
But bottom line is I'm trying to create a pane of glass that lets that loan officer get in very quickly every day and figure out, okay, I'm going to go work on the loans that I have in flight and cure any problems that are keeping me from getting a commission. That's the fastest path to money.
Yep.
Second, I'm going to look at my pipeline and my deal flow and see who can I move into an actual application, right? How can I move those guys forward? And if I don't have enough of those, I'm going to my referral partners.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's really three buckets that I need to be able to empower that loan officer to go in every day and decide, it's one of these three pieces of the puzzle that I'm going to solve for today, right? And they may split their time between all three of those paths all day long,
sure,
in order to get to the money that they need. At a certain point, though, they need to know that they can flip a switch on any new contact with a new realtor, or new builder, new Aunt Sally at the salon, right? Who knows everybody's business and is giving me all kind of referrals, right? I want to be able to make sure that I'm communicating and that I do that with as little real effort as possible. I don't want to be dialing for dollars all day. I want to have emails going out, text messages going out. And so I need to put that information in the tool set so that the tool set can then go to work for me.
Yeah, love that. So I want to get into something here in a minute, but let's hold off on that a minute. So in your seat, what's the best way for you to learn and understand from the loan officers kind of where their pain points are so that you can carefully construct and put together the pieces of the puzzle that are going to make them successful? I'm just curious, like what kind of cadence do you have with your field loan officers on a regular basis?
So we brought in a wonderful product manager, lady that's been in our business for years and years, Arlene Santiago. I'll just go ahead and say her name in case anybody wants to hire her. But Arlene is just absolutely wonderful as a product manager. And we have a cadence of calls with our MLOs. And so all of the branches are invited really every month for a quarterly MLO roadmap discussion, right? Where we reveal, here's what we're working on, here's where we're at with those things, here's what's coming soon, right? And then here's what we want to hear from you guys. What do you need that you don't have? And so we have that conversation once a month with everybody, and we roll through the large branches, medium-sized branches, and small branches month by month, right? So we can get them all in and kind of create a little buzz and a community kind of conversation. But we take a lot of feedback from the field on a regular basis about what they need and what they're looking for. And then, we go back up to the executive committee and try to figure out what can we actually do to deliver on this.
Yeah. Prioritization and budgeting.
And I love the engagement level that we're getting from the field, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing, a lot of give and take there that's really positive.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably obvious, but, the way I think about it is in your role, you have all kinds of different, customers that you're serving at the end of the day. Right. And it's one thing to get the feedback, and incorporate that into your kind of prioritization and your roadmap. But there's also times when you probably have to be a little stern and tough, and some, not everybody's idea is the best idea for the scale, for the masses. And so there's a lot of, there's probably some egos and some managing of those personalities, I'm guessing. And you come across as a kind of a calm, steady guy. Am I thinking about that right?
Well, I spent my first 4 years out of college working on nuclear missiles for the U.S. Air Force, and that has a way of calming you down. And today, I make the world safe for mortgages, not for democracy necessarily, but I can't blow up a city by accident. So that experience, in the Air Force, really in the nuclear environment, rule number one, don't panic. If you forget rule number one, don't panic.
That's right.
Right. Yeah, it's just that simple. Panic doesn't solve anything, and smart people under pressure, self-imposed even, don't think any better or faster. Right?
Yeah.
So
I love that. So
go ahead.
I've been diving into this book I picked up. Title is "We Can't Stay Here," right? And then "Becoming a Great Change Captain," written by a guy named Walt Carter. He might sound familiar to you.
I know him well.
I'm about a quarter of the way through. I think before we hit record, I'd said if I can just figure out how to set my laptop away from me, each evening instead of plowing through the endless emails that never go away, I'm going to get through this. My goal is to get through it in the next week or so. But the first quarter, it's interesting because it's a good blueprint for navigating change. There's the timing for this. For me to pick up this book is unbelievable, and I know it wasn't written 6 months ago. It's a lesson in story that just kind of keeps repeating itself. Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to put pen to paper and some of the lessons that you're sharing in this book?
Yeah, I've been doing kind of big change projects for most of my life now. I'm in my 40th year since I first started writing code. I hate to even say that out loud, but I built a nuclear particle accelerator simulation on a VAX as my undergraduate thesis back in 1983, 84. So literally 40 years ago, I started doing this kind of stuff. And then over the years, as a senior level IT executive, I've done a lot of packaged software implementations, big systems, global footprint, and I learned a lot, really the hard way. And the thing that I learned the most is really what you just said, right? It's a lot about the people. It's not much about the technology.
Yeah.
And over the years, I've said it this way, we can solve your technology problem. If you give us enough time and enough money and enough real detail on the context of what you're trying to solve for, we can build the right solution for you. Not a question in my mind about that. On the other hand, can I get all of the executives to just line up for a minute and stay that way so that we can actually get this thing done, right? That turns out to be hard. Getting the real requirements, right? Because you ask most people, well, what do you want? And they don't know. Their first answer is, I don't really know.
Right.
And then you got to get them into a process where they think their way through what they're doing. And in the live capture of that thinking process, you start to find the real requirements. But then inevitably, you get to the end of a delivery and they go, that's not what I wanted, right? That's the number one answer, by the way. That's not what I wanted. Well, yeah, it is, because this is where you signed off on those requirements.
Right, been there.
Well, I know that's what I said, but that's not what I meant. Second most popular answer. I know that's what I said. That's not what I meant. And then the third and rarest of all answer, but still a recognition, is, wow, you read my mind. That's exactly what I was looking for. Oh, by the way, can you make it do these things too?
Yeah.
Right. And, and even that admission that you read my mind says you didn't tell me. We had to really know the context in order to get in there and assume some things that you didn't reveal in that live capture. Right. So the game that I play is a really tough game. And for all of my peers out there in IT across the financial services industry, it is a tough game. And right now in this market, it's the toughest it's been in my lifetime. But it's really all about the people and being a good listener and being calm, right?
Yeah.
Don't just getting upset about any of this stuff. People don't know what they don't know. You got to help them figure it out. And then if your team's really good at helping them figure it out, you deliver solutions that work.
Yeah, I love that. I spent 28 years in the primary mortgage space, origination space, before, moving over to FinLocker. And one of the last projects that I was involved in was a complete overhaul of the bank's B2B mortgage platform. So we were a big wholesaler, and I always leaned, probably drove my team a little crazy, but I always leaned towards the tech side of the world when it came to these conversations, when the deliverables were handed off, and then it was the old, well, that's not what I wanted. And I always kind of said, okay, wait a minute, guys, weren't you in the room? Weren't you on the other side of the table when all the elaborations were happening and all the business requirements were being drafted? What did we miss here? And so, I love that you kind of called that out, because it is, and it's the hardest thing to do as the buyer, right? Is to slow down and give this project the life that it needs, and that life is really making sure you're spending time with your technology partner to understand and making sure it's crystal clear on what it is you're trying to solve for.
What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And how will we know when we're done?
Yeah.
Right? And if we can get fundamental alignment on that and an agreement that we're all human and that we're going to figure out some stuff that we couldn't possibly know at the beginning along the way together, right? And stay tied to what are we doing, why are we doing it, and how are we going to know we're done all the way through. We'll win most of the time. But that's a lot easier said than done.
It is.
I recognize that. The other thing is, I had an epiphany. I probably started thinking about the book 7 years before I wrote it, which was, I need to write this stuff down, because a lot of the stuff that I'm accessing here, frankly, it's not common. And you'll see that as you get further into the book. I talk about chaos theory. I talk about, the exploration of how the river flows in your organization. How do you actually create value? Don't fight the people and human nature. Don't fight the culture, right? You got to make all those things work together for you. But you can't do that if you don't understand them.
Yeah.
Right. And so a lot of this is about understanding human nature. People are herd animals. They are not solo performers most of the time. There's a small squad, tribe, battalion, wing, whatever, right? All of that stuff becomes important. And then at the end of the book, my father-in-law wrote the afterword, it's worth the price of the book. If you just read what he wrote at the end, that's worth the money. Second, I put some kind of case studies together at the end of several projects that really went off the rails, and what I learned from each one of those. And, because everybody can tell you all the wonderful stuff that went perfectly.
Yeah.
I figured I'd go the other way and say, no, here's the stuff that goes bad.
Yeah.
And here's what could have happened, right? Here's what maybe should have happened. So,
yeah. And stuff's going to go bad. Guess what? You still have to deliver. You still have to figure out how to deliver on the plan and on the project, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so that was the first book that came out in October, and it's done very well. Actually, it's a international #1 bestseller.
I love it.
Still holding good ground out there on Amazon. And I'm working on the second book now, which has a working title, "Driving Behind Idiots." No reflection on my bosses or any of the people that I've worked with. It's really more about driving in Atlanta for 25 years, where we're #1, by the way, for the worst traffic in America.
Oh yeah.
And we beat out Los Angeles the last few years. To take the
part of the reason, Walt, is because every street is called Peachtree. I mean, that confuses people. Just so you know.
Here, and they go everywhere.
Yeah.
But the other thought was, you have to have a leadership system that tells you what the leaders in your organization are accountable and responsible for. And so I'm taking these bad driver analogies and trying to move them in, because all these bad drivers that I drive with every morning in Atlanta park in your parking lot at your company, and they're making decisions for your company the best they can. Right?
Yeah.
If they're a bad driver, they're probably bad driving in your organization. And so here's what you can do to kind of forestall that. I have a co-author on this one who's actually coached 50 companies to try to win the National Quality Award, and more than 17 of them now have won the award. Right, so that's a record, by the way. The guy's a phenomenal coach for executive teams, but we started talking about the fact that getting that executive alignment is probably the hardest thing, right?
And I don't think the size of the company makes a difference, really. It's equally important, in small companies as it is in, massive companies with hundreds of executives. You got to have that alignment before you start to deliver, try to deliver against the project. Walt, this has been a great conversation. I'm going to put a link to the book in the post here when we publish. Everybody should check it out. And then I already made a note. Following Idiots, was that what it's called? What's
Driving Behind Idiots.
Driving Behind Idiots. There you go.
I could go with Passing on the Right, but I'm not quite sure. Not sure how I want to do that just yet. Right now, the code name is Driving Behind Idiots, and we'll probably have that out by the end of the year.
Yeah.
But I'd like to take a second and just encourage everybody to go out and take a look at your product. I got to be honest with you, Brian. Since I dove in there, I'm very impressed with what FinLocker is bringing to the marketplace. And for our LOs, if we could get a borrower that was already in a FinLocker that's already ready to go, man, that would be money for us. It's big. So thank you so much.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for that. Walt, thanks for coming on. Everyone, thanks for joining us on this FinTech Friday. Come back next Friday.
All right.